Okay. I would like to welcome you all to this new and exciting session today with a leading figure in the digital transformation and innovation in Lebanon. So before we start, just let me welcome you again, and then please let's do a small housekeeping. Please keep your microphone muted at all time. Any chat or any questions you have, please post them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will take them accordingly in the last minutes. So let me welcome our guest, Dr. Youssef. Dr. Youssef, you're a very prominent figure. Let me do the introduction based on that, and we will proceed. So, Dr. Youssef, if you don't know him, Dr. Youssef Asfour is currently serving as a Chief Innovation and Transformation Officer leading the Consolidated Office of Information Technology at the American University of Beirut, AUB. And also, two hats, American University of Beirut Medical Center, heading the Talal and Madiha Zain AUB Innovation Park, as well as the AUB Online Unit. Dr. Asfour is also the president of the CIO Lebanon Association and a key player in leadership role in establishing the TechCare, the Lebanese National Resource and Education Network, NREN. Dr. Youssef is an experienced executive with more than 30 years of experience in the US and the Middle East. He's also successfully helped several organizations in their education, government, transportation, technology, and finance sector build and sustain their competitive advantage by leading high-performing IT through the design, implementation, deployment, and operation of innovative products, services, and applications. Dr. Youssef, prior to AUB, served as the founding Chief Information Officer for New York University of Abu Dhabi, and Associate Vice President Global Technology Services for New York University, where he led the design of new campus and also the design and implementation of operation of IT services. Also, Dr. Youssef served as chairman of IT department at the AUD, American University in Dubai, where he led revamping the curriculum and getting accredited by SACS and the UAE Ministry of Higher Education, and as a director of Injazat Institute. Dr. Asfour has also led the leadership and executive positioning with several technology companies in the US. Dr. Youssef received his BS and MS in electrical engineering from Northeastern University and a PhD in cognitive and neural systems from Boston University. In addition to several publications in journal, Dr. Asfour also holds a patent related to fast transfer for multi-process system. I'm impressed. Okay, I've read it really before multiple times, but this time, because I'm really reading it from, I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I really love that you are in Lebanon and you faced all of the challenges that is happening, and you stayed. And this is the message I wanted to give today, that with all of your traveling and working abroad and giving abroad to people, you decided to stay. And this is the power today that we will be discussing, even though I guess the last 2 years were beyond the challenges that we faced. So I'd like to welcome you and give you the floor if you have anything to say before, and then you can share your presentation.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you for the kind introduction and the kind commentary as well. I'm very excited and honored to actually be presenting here today. What I'd like to do is spend the next few minutes just talking about what service management looks like in higher education and the challenges we're facing, and then see how we dealt with those and moved forward. So let me start. First, I have to figure out how to share. Give me a second. Can you see it? Can everyone see the slides?
Yes, Yusuf.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening.
Excellent. So, like I mentioned, I'll be talking about service management in higher education and the challenges and lessons learned we've had over the past. Let me start by telling you about the AUB mission. The mission of IT at AUB is really to become a strategic partner with all the units in order to transform teaching, research, student life, and patient care at AUB. And the key here is that the mission of IT is not to be a service delivery organization, but really to be a strategic change partner that helps with the change management of AUB in order to change and improve and transform the way we do teaching, the way we do research, change the student experience, but also patient care. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to create an environment where a lecturer in New York can come to a classroom in Beirut to teach, or a researcher at the lab may be able to connect the ant he's trying to analyze to a genome sequencer somewhere else, or to allow doctors to collaborate with each other remotely and also treat patients remotely. We also want to be able to create an environment where a physician on campus can connect, physicists on campus can connect their laptop or the device to CERN, because we want to encourage them to discover new things. Just like we want to create an environment where students can, from their bedroom, from their dorms, connect to servers and play around with technology so that they can hopefully invent the new Facebook. And we also want to enable our researchers on the beach to connect their machines so that they can take pictures and analyze fish remotely. But we also want to create a better life where we allow students in a coffee shop can connect to her roommate to finish her homework. The bottom line, what we were trying to do is to create what we call an any to the 6 ecosystem. An ecosystem where anyone can connect from anywhere through any device at any time to any resource to do anything. So for example, you can imagine a student connecting remotely to through their phone at midnight to our servers so that they can play a game, or a doctor connecting from the surgery room using the computer in the surgery during surgery hours so that they can connect to resources and other doctors to do surgery. So the big question, though, is how do we do that? And one of the fundamental challenges that we have with academic enterprises is that, unlike commercial companies, universities and institutes of higher education are really a set of loosely coupled schools. So for example, at AUB, we have 7 faculties. Each faculty or school has its own logo, as you can see. It has its own dean, which is the equivalent of their CEO. They also have their own budget. Many of them have their own sources of funding, but some of them in the bigger universities, such as NYU, and the bigger faculties, such as the medical school, they even have their own HR, they have their own procurement, they have their own everything. So really what you have in a university is a bunch of small companies that are all tied together loosely. And that leads us to a big problem, to the problem that I call, it creates the problem of dealing with the golden rule. If I was in the audience right now, I'd ask, does any one of you know what the golden rule is? Well, here's one version of it. The golden rule is, he who has the gold makes the rules. So what ends up happening, because the different faculties are loosely coupled together, and because they have their own funding to some extent, and because they have their own brand, and because they're loosely coupled, every faculty would want to make its own rules. And that leads to a bunch of an environment where we have a bunch of equally powerful leaders that are trying to make university-wide decisions. But none of those leaders or none of those deans is more powerful than the other. And so every time we want to make a university-wide decision, we have to go through that through committees, but also through consensus. And of course, every dean and every leader wants something different, right? So for example, the medical school wants its own system to do procurement, while the engineering school thinks of admission very differently from the School of Business, etc. So this raises a big question. How do we do things so that we can make sure that we have consistency across the board, but at the same time meeting all those requirements? And in fact, this raises a big question that whenever you go to a university, the big question becomes, do we want centralized IT or decentralized IT? In fact, when I was being interviewed for AUB, I got into this big hall where all the IT folks were there, about 100 of them. And the first question they asked me, so when you come here, are you going to centralize IT or are you going to decentralize it? Well, as you all know, that centralization has a lot of advantages. In addition to economies of scale, it also provides us with an integrated environment. It provides us with the efficiencies in operations, but also it allows us to grow very big. However, to do centralized, you have to start thinking in terms of one size fits all. So you have one system for everybody. You have one process for everybody. You have one set of operations for everybody. And in an environment like a university, if every decision requires consensus, well, you can imagine that no decisions happen. In fact, when I was at one of the other universities, I'm not going to mention which one, we used to have an expression that says, anybody, everybody, anybody, nobody. Everybody is invited to the meeting. Anybody can express their opinion, and nobody's accountable for the decision. That's a very typical university environment. So although there are advantages to centralized IT, there are also difficulties in implementing them in a university. On the other hand, the decentralized approach will help us address all the customized fitting, and actually allows us to meet the individual needs of the different deans. So if different deans want different processes, if different deans want different systems, it allows us to do that. And it also allows us to make decision-making very quick. However, there is a disadvantage with that as well. And that is by having lots and lots of systems, we're going to increase not just the capital costs, but we're also going to increase the operational costs and reduce the operational efficiencies. We also have to increase staff. And needless to say that you get islands of technology that are not connected to each other. And so you lose the power that you get out of having a single institution. A big part of that would be, for example, data analysis and business intelligence. If you have that, you can't get all the information you need, and therefore all the efficiencies there. So what is the answer? So when they asked me, are you going to centralize or decentralize? I basically said, my answer is yes. What does yes mean? It really means I want to do a model that is both. And what we came up with is a federated model. And a federated model to me means that we have localized service with centralized management. Think of this as if the IT at AUB or the IT at the university is really an IT company that the university schools or the faculties have outsourced their services to them. As you start thinking that way, you realize that an IT outsourcing company has to have centralized management, has to have standardized processes and policies, but deals with each customer differently. And where they can share resources, they can, and when they can be different, they will be. And that's the kind of model we did. We basically built it on the model that IT at AUB and actually NYU, we did the same thing, is the IT outsourcing company that the different deans and the different schools outsource to. What does that mean in real practice? Well, first of all, we started with federated service support. So the way we did that is we assigned a locally stationed IT manager. Each school has its own IT manager, which is really the equivalent of what I'd like to call a mini CIO. Their job is to oversee the IT operations and IT needs within the faculty and the school, and to make sure that all the services are being delivered properly and all the requests and all the needs are being articulated and collected properly. But also we have the locally stationed field support resources. These are like the mini help desk. These are the people that answer the phone, but also go to the certain offices. They walk around, they fix the computers, they fix the support, and they do all of that locally. So for each school, we had a dedicated team of an IT manager along with the field support staff. However, all those IT managers and field support resources reported directly in a solid line to the central IT department within AUB. So the IT managers reported to what we call the Director of IT Service Delivery, and so did the field support resources did that. By doing so, we've basically able to do two things. The first thing we're able to do is to provide very customized and hands-on services for each one of the faculties and the deans. We also start growing local relationships with those deans and the faculty in that school and the students. And it allowed us to start doing partnership with the local leadership. I'll give you an example. The IT manager at the medical school is part of the executive team of the hospital. However, she reports directly to me. Similarly, at least to the central team here. Similarly, the field support help desk folks also, although they are part and parcel of the medical school, they also report directly centrally. This allows us to do, in addition to building the local relationships with the leadership, it also allows us to consolidate the common requirements, and I'll talk about that in a bit, and also implement standardized processes and policies for IT. And what it also gives us a couple of advantages. One of the advantages is if we go short, if one or two people in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences get sick, we can replace them temporarily from another faculty. Similarly, because they're all part of the same team and because they report directly to a central IT, we can also make sure that the training and the skills development is there and standardized, but also we're providing career paths for those people on those fields. But Federated did not only stop with the field support, but it also went into the infrastructure. The way the network is designed is we have basically multiple hubs and multiple clusters so that we cluster each area or each functional area into its own core, and then we connect all the cores to a central core. And then we provide consolidated enterprise services for all the university. And we go to the cloud-based services as much as we can so we can provide the customized services that are required by the different schools. So in general, we have clustered infrastructure with centralized enterprise applications and services and cloud-based customized services for the different schools. This allows us to provide the flexible local needs that we need, meeting the local needs while at the same time isolating security requirements and standardizing policies and operational efficiencies. And we also have federated processes where basically, like I mentioned earlier, the IT manager's role is to play as the mini CIO within each school. And their job is to better understand, in addition to making sure that the services are being delivered locally properly, their job is also to better understand the local needs and the local requirements. Then on a regular basis, all the IT managers from the different schools meet together to consolidate the requirements and come up with a standard centralized requirements review process so that we can come up with as much as we can standardized platforms with customized needs and try to find where the commonalities are and then push those back to the different faculties. We also have a centralized design and implementation process, and of course, centralized change review board. By doing all this, we were able to start shifting away from focusing on managing infrastructure to really into a process of creating research and teaching services. So instead of spending a lot of our resources and energy on managing the infrastructure, now we can start focusing on what are the services that people need. And in order to do that, we also were transforming our staff from mostly engineers to what I'd like to call service analysts and service managers, whose job is really to better understand the business and see how we can marry it with the technology. And in order to do all that, transform our role from being service providers, where people, basically we are people who are actually building and delivering services, to becoming more of a service broker, where we identify multiple service providers, whether they're third parties or internal, and focus on trying to match the right service with the right client, and focusing all our development effort, not just on customizing, but really on the integration and the flow between the different applications and different services. By doing so, actually, we were able to quickly transform IT from being a mediocre, I would say, service provider to a transformation engine in less than 5 years. And the way we did that, we started by first establishing where we are, establishing a baseline, trying to understand what we're good at, what we're not. Once we did that, we start focusing on becoming a better service provider by focusing on our areas of development, and so that we can become focused on service excellence. That led us in a couple of years to become a service broker and trusted partner with the different faculties. In fact, when we started in 2014, every dean was complaining about IT. By 2015 and 2016, we stopped hearing the complaints. By 2017, basically when we noticed that we're partners when the actual deans and the faculty in the different organizations would come to IT and say, we want to do this, can you help us with that? And once we became partners, just as the events started happening in Lebanon, we had become a transformation agent, where we're not just trusted partners, but now we have become a place where they come to us. And in fact, we go to them as well and say, if you do this, you can transform your business. So by putting all these things together, we were able to go from a mediocre service provider to a transformation agent. And now we're becoming focusing on innovation and transformation. And in fact, the timing couldn't be more perfect, because by the time COVID-19 came, it basically presented us with a push to an opportunity to do a push. One of my favorite sayings is never waste a good crisis. And between the 2019 Thawra and between the COVID-19, we saw those crises as an opportunity to push the things that were stuck before. I'll give you an example. There were some work practices at the university that could have been more flexible. And we've been trying to do different things. We were trying to basically encourage HR and the other departments to allow people to work to flexibility with work and with remote work. We're also, there was some discussion and some resistance to online teaching. So because we were ready for this, by the time COVID-19 came, we said, this is a great opportunity to start pushing for flexibility in work and pushing quickly to teach things remotely. So what we were able to do, we were able to, when basically the Thawra came, and we were able to turn on work from home within 24 hours. We were able to roll out web conferencing. We enabled secure access to systems, and we rolled out remote support, which handled more than 400 support tickets in the first 48 hours and more than 7,000 tickets in 2 months. Now, and then all of a sudden, because we were ready and because the infrastructure and the processes were there, we were able to do that very quickly within 24 hours. And all of a sudden, the people who were resisting remote work and resisting flexible work hours, now it's become part of our culture. Similarly, we helped, when COVID came along, we set up at AUB a COVID clinic, and we were able to do it in less than 10 days. In order to do that, we had to reconfigure our systems. We reconfigured the infrastructure because we had to relocate 11 departments actually from one building to another. And we had to create new dashboards and reports. And we were also able to set up telehealth, again, something that was not available at the time. But basically because of the lockdowns, because of COVID, we were able to push it through. And that helped us reduce patient exposure and commute and generate additional revenues during the lockdown. We also were able to dramatically expand technology-assisted teaching, even though we call it that because it's not really online learning, and we were able to do that within 72 hours. We very quickly created course shells on the learning management system. We were able to onboard more than 300 faculty to show them how to do things online, how to use the tools we have. And we supported 1,200 faculty requests and conducted more than 1,700 exams exams for 1,700 students. And one of the biggest challenges was rolling out online proctoring. One of the biggest challenges was some faculty members were concerned about cheating. And so we did some online proctoring tools, but not only that, we worked with the faculty to actually help them transform the way they assess. We started having discussions with them, say, listen, do you really need to have a test? How about you do this and how about you do that? And we provided them with online tools to help them do assessments using other than tests so that they can assess their students in a better way. And we also worked with the administration to help improve the student experience. For example, we had to change the way we do grading. We started offering pass and no pass that required changes in systems. We also enabled online payments for students that wasn't there available or not that common. And we also did a lot of automation in allowing students to change their majors, clearance forms, etc. All of those things that we always wanted to do, but people had resistance. So when the students were not able to come to school and when the faculty were not able to come to school, we were able to push that through. In this process, by the way, we even saved more than $500,000 by going back and renegotiating some of the contracts. So I guess the bottom line is this. If you focus on setting up a federated support model along with creating the NE2-6 infrastructure and start moving IT from being a service delivery organization to a server broker, then you can start taking opportunities of crises to push different things through. And if you are successful by doing all that, we were able to go from an average service provider to a transformation partner in less than 5 years. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it and open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Asfour, for that interesting perspective. You know, especially in time of COVID, I think it was really challenging, and the technology people are most. Sorry, just let me mute some. Okay, so and the technology people are more or less the most transformative portion of any change. But that doesn't mean they are the full transformation. But it's easier for the technology or tech savvy for them to be transformed. I'm sure challenges were faced, as you mentioned, with the teachers or with the proctoring and the way, what did the possibilities of having technologies at hand, opening new ways of thinking, and then, changing the ways, the old ways that didn't work. So I'll take a first question from the audience, and we have one regarding from Hassan Shukr regarding the secure access to the environment. Now, because before everything was centralized in a data center, and you could have spent a lot of millions of dollars to secure it. Suddenly we woke up, everything is not anymore, as you said, centralized. It's decentralized, even in a technology perspective. So how did you manage the vulnerability management, patching, continuous security exercise, which is a very big headache, knowing, it's on-premise, off-premise, everywhere, making sure everybody is secure. In the same time, fraud, as we read reports, was all-time high, especially in the first couple of months. Sorry, you're muted.
I didn't realize I muted myself. Very good question, and very tough way to answer it. But let me start by saying that we had recognized a few years back that we need to go to an environment where people could access the NE to the 6 environment. So we were beginning to already move towards an environment where it was a bit more accessible remotely. And one of our key drivers was, in fact, people are going to laugh at me and maybe get nervous. One of my key criteria was, I don't want to see any VPNs. There's a lot of web-based technologies that we could use. There's a lot of other operational stuff. So the key was to start finding ways to create a secure environment that allows people to access things from anywhere. And we did that in many ways. One of my fundamental principles is that good security really depends on good operations. If you have a state-of-the-art, if you have a standard best practice operations, security almost comes by default. Meaning, part of the operations is making sure that you're patching on a regular basis, making sure that you're doing vulnerability checks, making sure that you're managing identities very properly. So we started fixing our security by first focusing on operations, making sure that we have standard operations. The second thing is we looked for ways to segregate our infrastructure, and over the years start migrating away from client-based systems to, for lack of a better term, web-based systems. And then the third thing we did, and I think there are 2 points I'd like to make. One is if you look at all the data, a lot of the security breaches, if not the majority of them, happen internally rather than externally, either because of phishing or because of bad actors. So what we try to do is minimize phishing by doing and minimize fraud by implementing multi-factor authentication, by also doing we spent a lot of effort doing security campaigns, educating our community about security, and we also made sure that we manage our staff properly. So if we had decided to go remotely the day COVID came, it wouldn't have taken us 24 hours. It would have taken us much more.
I think, Dr. Asfour, your internet. We will wait. Meanwhile, I'll try to step in. Yes. So we lost Dr. Asfour. I think it's a very interesting perspective on how they manage such a complex environment and diverse, not just complex. I think it's also diverse, from hospitals' needs to university needs to students and so on and so on. It's a beautiful example of great leadership and how they can try to manage as much as they can in tough times. So please continue adding your questions. Camille, I'll take you next, and then I'll take Hassan and then Antoine. Also, if you have a question from YouTube Live, because I see some activity there, please also do post them so we can take them from there. Dr. Asfour, are you with us? Yes, Antoine?
Yeah, what I like the most with the federated model is they start with the local support. So the service desk mainly was the core for him to start, and this is, you see that the service desk become the core between the decentralized faculties.
Yes, exactly. And this is how orchestration, they become the main orchestrator of every move. So while waiting, Dr. Asfour, please do post your questions, and hopefully with our challenges, our daily challenges, I guess, we will always continue and prosper. Meanwhile, Hadi, also you have a question. Great, we'll take it once Dr. Asfour is back.
Yeah, I guess, you know, from my experience with AUB on the service desk level, yes, they were, you know, following best practices like more than 5 years ago. So they start following best practices such ITIL or COBIT 5 at that time. That's, you know, try to answer Hadi questions.
Yeah, I think they invested early in alternatives. That is a big, it was, I think, a winning strategy. As he mentioned before he leaves, in a web perspective application. Yeah, his laptop crashed. So yeah, that's when technology doesn't work.
But well, good if it is technology, not, you know, power cut or internet problem.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the last thing he said is web-based applications. I think today the whole perspective of every technology is about web-based, and moving to a web-based app or web app or everything becomes easy. It's normal. Camille, best can you write where, what company?
LEU. Yeah.
LEU. Yeah. I think we are facing a big problem with talents today. So let's see how challenge is. You know, it's another challenge that we have to take. And hopefully, you know, we will be able to survive that period that we are here today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not only you, Camille. You know, many of the organizations, especially universities, they are losing many people from the IT, you know, going abroad. Yes.
Okay, so we have Dr. Asfour back with us.
I'm sorry and embarrassed about this, but these things happen, especially when you don't want them to.
It's always happen when you don't want them. It's normal. Yeah. So we had just a small discussion on the strategy that you put about being decentralized, and how was the call center centralizing the whole operations and, you know, taking over, and then the strategy also of being web enabled, which helped you a lot when you went into the crisis mode, and that was able to give you an advantage edge versus traditionally where you really need to install something on everybody's. So let's take the first question from the audience. It was Hadi, please. Hadi, are you with us?
Yes, Rudy.
Yeah, please.
In fact, the question it's about guiding principles and framework regarding service management or governance. I'm sure this has been guides for you to implement this drastic transformation in the AUB system. So do you have any kind of suggestion or kind of recommendation or experience you can share with us while implementing such framework in your environment?
The way I would say it is we're ITIL based, but not really completely ITIL. What we did is we picked and chose the places where it makes sense. We actually, all our team is ITIL certified. In fact, we insisted that we get them all certified, at least for the basic ITIL level. But and then basically we put some key elements in there. For example, the service desk, although the service desk is central, actually, although I wouldn't say anything is centralized or decentralized. Everything is, in my word, what I'd like to describe as federated. So there are local data, there are local help desks in each location, but they all go back to the central help desk. Tickets come into the central help desk and are automatically routed to the right team. But the flip side is also true. If somebody goes to the local help desk and there's nobody there, or if they call the help desk and the local help desk and if they don't answer it, it goes back to the central help desk. Similarly, the other structures that we put in place very quickly to help us get started, where the two boards I mentioned, one was the RRB, the other one was the CRB. The RRB is the requirements review board, where we had the different requirements and requests coming in from the different faculties. We met on a regular basis, we still do, to review those requests. And the objective there is to basically do three things. One, prioritize. Two, consolidate. And three, resource. Meaning that first, let's say, is this important? The second part is, what is common about this request among all the other ones? So that we can try to identify the platforms. And one of the guiding principles there is, let's use existing platforms before bringing in new ones. The term I like to use is only build when you exhaust everything, only consider new systems when you exhaust all your platforms, and then buy before you build. And then the same thing is the CRB, which is the change review board. Before we do any release of any service to anywhere, it has to go through a centralized release board, again, to make sure that we are coordinating all the efforts. So ITIL based, but not completely ITIL, key structures like the CRB, the RRB, and then basically these federated ticketing system. I hope that answers that question.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Youssef.
Ghassan, do you mind asking your question?
Yes, thank you, Rudy. Hello, Youssef.
Hi, Ghassan. Good to see you.
Thank you. نحن كمان. I'm with Youssef and many here in the CIO Lebanon Association, so we know each other. Youssef, a question that I put in the chat. I have read yesterday an article from the US in a magazine called the Government Technology Review magazine. They predict that in the US and across the world, universities and corporates are already now witnessing a big exodus of IT talent, where quality IT staff are leaving massively, looking not only for finance, but for flexibility that they used to have with this COVID era, like telework, work from home, and a better work-life balance with their families. And many are predicting that the 8-9 shifts or 9-6 hours per day of work are over. So how do you see this prediction affecting AUB? And was AUB hit by such a crisis? And what do you think about this prediction that will hit sooner or later any IT staff in any organization? Thank you.
Let me tell you, the short answer is it's not a prediction. It's happening right now, right? And I think two things. AUB, like any other institution in Lebanon, I think, is seeing a mass exodus of really good talent. And the way I describe it is, in addition to retention, there's a big challenge with replacement, right? Because even when people leave, it's going to be very difficult to find others to get into this environment. What we've done at AUB is two things to address that, to the extent we can. At least within the IT teams, I fought very hard to maintain the flexibility of work hours at AUB. In fact, the IT team, I have team members that have not been to the office for 2 years. Okay. And I, at least from my team on, although AUB and institutions in Lebanon are still, in my opinion, very traditional when it comes to managing labor and managing staff, schedules and shifts and all that. Within IT, we've always been very, very flexible. My bottom line is, do your work, make sure that you are present enough to interact with the right people at the right time, and I'm not gonna ask. That's one part, and that has paid off. Yes, we've had some losses, but in the areas where we were able to be flexible, we had much fewer losses. And I'll give you an example is within the campus IT, we were able to be more flexible than in the medical center IT. We lost very few people in the campus compared to the medical center where it's very rigid. And it's not the pay, it's the flexibility, as you said, Ghassan. Having said that, we're still losing, but we're not losing them because it's the AUB. At least the ones we're losing right now are not because of the environment at AUB, but actually it's because of the situation in Lebanon. In fact, almost everybody, I don't want to say almost everybody, but a majority of the people that resigned and left actually have come to my office crying, saying we don't want to leave, and we're not leaving because of AUB or because of IT of AUB. So I guess what I'm trying to say is two things. One is we need to start recognizing that basically it's a different world now, and COVID has shown that the work environment is different. To me, that's the new normal. So we need to find ways to be more flexible in the way we treat our staff, because that has become a key feature. Now, what we can't compete against, though, is pay, and that's because of where we are. Our clients are in Lebanon, and therefore we earn in Lebanon, and therefore we pay in Lebanon, right? And that's making things, but we have plans for that. I'll talk to you about that some other time. So the answer is yes. COVID has shown that people can work remotely, can have flexible hours, and people want that. And IT folks in particular want that. And unless you deal with that, you're going to lose more. So yeah, I believe some universities are beginning to, I think at AUB we got it. On campus, we're able to be much more flexible than the hospital. And the data shows it. We've lost much fewer people on campus than we have in the hospital. And I would attribute that because of the flexibility. By the way, just as an aside, I had people calling me, my staff calling me from home saying, when are you going to let us back on campus? I really miss working on campus. And by the way, I want to work less, so please let me come on campus. People are actually working much more from home than they work from campus, just as an aside.
Thank you, Yusuf. Thank you.
Yeah, true. Marwan, I think Dr. Yusuf answered your question. We're going to move to
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hassan.
Hi, how are you, Doctor?
Yes.
I hope you're doing fine. Thank you for a very inspiring presentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening.
I just want to highlight a few things. I'm the security guy, basically for penetration testing, transformation, web application, all of that. And there are two things that I feel like taking your input on. One of them is the operational cost, because as you know, in cybersecurity, automation is not always the solution, because sometimes you need the human factor to adapt with different variables that exist within a network or under attack or an Active Directory environment. And most of the companies are using SCCM or GFI or other patching management tools, which aren't always to be the most safest of havens when it comes to immediately patching and mitigating threats. This is from one side. How do you tackle that aspect? Because the operational cost is kind of heavy, specifically when you have stuff that needs to be patched now, while you have the rule to be patched on a regular basis, quarterly basis, maybe monthly basis. So how are you prioritizing your patching management environment? And the second question is, I'm a bug bounty person. So do you believe that bug bounty programs is somehow of an answer for mid-range and high-range companies in Lebanon to be able to provide the fixes for critical issues that are discovered by freelance hackers around the world? with the minimum pay that's being offered. Like, I'm pretty sure some people in Lebanon would love to get paid 100,000 Lebanese lira for a vulnerability, but at least just to generate this extra income within their day. Do you think bug bounty program is an approach that we should look at in the future in the country as big companies progress? And thank you.
Let me start with the second question first. I'm guessing that by big bug bounty, you actually mean that giving financial rewards for people who report vulnerabilities so that we can address them. Is that correct?
True. Very true.
Yeah. I think any program that can encourage people to find vulnerabilities and help us fix them is seriously a good thing. And whether you do this at a national level, at an institutional level, or at a global level, I think that's a good thing. Especially that if you report those vulnerabilities to the right people as opposed to the wrong people. So, absolutely. In fact, that might be, it might end up being a more cost-effective and faster way to find vulnerabilities. As the patching goes, yes, security is always under-resourced. There's never enough resources to secure something. In fact, what I tell people is the only secure system is a system that's turned off. And actually, I used to say that, now I say turned off and unplugged, because even if it's turned off, you can address it. So the way we deal with patching and updates is we constantly monitor the updates that come, and we try to do 2 to 3 times of regular patches a year, because we have multiple systems, and so we try to synchronize them. And what we try to do, we prioritize the security patches right away. On top, and then we do all the other patches. In terms of the patches that need to be done right away, these fortunately are not that often, and we deal with them on a case-by-case basis. That's a long-winded way of saying, basically, to me, it's less about the tool and more about the process. It's also more about the human factor. One of the things that we've noticed, though, I'd like to go back to that, and I don't know if that's digressing from your question, is that we invested a lot in security awareness, both in terms, specifically with the end users. And that's something that I think is underrated, but that's something that has huge value, and that helps us a lot as well.
Just a final comment. You're 100% true, because you can pay $40 million on security, on a security protection umbrella. One spear phishing email would basically destroy all of those tools. Thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah. In fact, part of what we do is sometimes we do some simulated phishing. So actually we send some emails and then we catch people who fall for them and embarrass them so that they learn very quickly not to do it again. So.
Super true. Thank you for your answer.
Dr. Youssef, I have a recommendation also to be maybe followed by the CIO group, that maybe bounty hunting should be, I'm not saying legalized, but officially talked about in Lebanon. Hassan mentioned something, but legislatively and all of the laws and everything, even the perspective, the mentality, the way we approach it is always on a negative side. You know, we don't take it as Hassan maybe is a hacker, but he found something that will be so valuable to give it to you rather than, hide on it. He's not going to use it. Somebody else will discover it. But that culture is not there. But I guess, through communication and awareness, as you said, awareness is key. I think this could be also a key for us. So I'll take Mr. Camille Abu Nasser's, please go ahead.
Hi, Youssef. Hope all's well.
Hi, Camille. Long time no see.
Yeah. Youssef, congratulations on a great transformation story. My question to you is, in this federated model, where do academic IT fit in, i.e. those, operating the labs, academic IT labs?
Right now, basically, right now they fit with us with central IT, but we've broken it up into two pieces. The what I call academic IT services. One piece of it is with service delivery, and they're part of the support. So each one of the field support units supports the local labs within their units. I have to admit though, there are some faculties that want to continue, server huggers continue to support their own labs. But the way we've dealt with that is we've actually, over time, worked towards a more virtualized environments, and now we have virtual labs. So now, basically, they take care of the facilities, and we take care of the licensing and the systems. So the short answer is the labs. I have to be specific. The computer labs, right? Computer-based labs, as opposed to wet labs like chemistry labs and physics labs. We don't deal with those. Yeah. IT-based labs. These are part of the service delivery organization. But then we, just like we have local field support, the local field support is also responsible for the labs within their region. And then we also have a separate piece that deals with computational high computing, like performance computing, like computational resources for research, like also online learning management systems. These are centralized. However, we've also built a virtual environment so that, for example, like I said, we have the virtual labs so that you can run those computational research labs almost from any desktop and from almost any machine. And they're managed, the requirements for those labs are managed through the IT managers that are localized to each faculty. But those IT managers report back to central IT, and the infrastructure is managed by central IT. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, but one more piece, piece of the puzzle is what about the actual, academic content of what they give? That's purely with the school, right?
I'm not sure. What do you mean by academic content?
Yeah, now today this lab is giving, that course.
The management, the scheduling of the labs is up to the departments. So, for example, let's say there's a lab that today they're going to use ECAD, and in an hour's time they're going to use something else. We virtualize this environment so we can flip them very quickly. But which lab is being used for what at what time? That's not our business. That's the department's business.
Was this any did this cause any problems, issues, or it's well segregated?
It's actually it took us time to get to that point, right? We had to, because when I first came on board, the labs were, specifically in engineering, the labs were run and operated completely by the engineering team. And it took us time for them to understand the value and trust us, so that eventually they let go. And then we put in the virtual infrastructure, and they saw that it's easier. This is a good example of what I like to say is IT is not about technology. IT is really about building the relationships and getting the trust to do the things that you need to do. I sometimes call myself the CPO, the Chief Psychology Officer. It's all about, so it took time, but now we're in a good place.
Thank you very much.
I hope you get a doctorate degree in psychology. Because it's a way to deal.
It is. I keep on telling my staff, IT is not about technology, and they don't get that. But anyway,
Dr. Asfour, how are you on time?
I am fine, and I think my phone is doing well as well. I was just checking the battery.
We have 2 questions, so I just wanted to see if you're committed, or we'll take these 2 questions. Amjad, please go ahead.
Thank you, Rudy, and thank you, Doctor, for this nice, sharing of your story. My question is, as you know, we in IT have seen that COVID had helped driving the digitization like nothing, and we tried 10 years to drive this digitization, but COVID within a year managed to do way better than what we've done for the past 10 years. Now, there's like tend for governments, organizations, and companies to relax because COVID is getting to an end, hopefully, and it's not like what happens at the beginning, right? And then maybe in our Arabic world, we tend to relax and go back to square one. You know what I mean? That people will start, get rid out of systems and all this digitization. So we started very fast, and I'm very afraid that it's going to collapse very fast as well, especially in Middle East. So what's your strategies to guarantee a sustainable approach to what you have built? Because we don't want to, just to crash all what we have built in a year, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a nice way to say it without looking like I'm mean. But basically, as we were converting to COVID, we got the sense that eventually COVID would go away, right? And we wanted to stick. So what we did was we kind of overplayed our hand. I hope this is recorded, but that's okay. So here's what we did. There were times when the lockdown was lifted and faculty were coming on campus and some students would come on campus. I insisted at those times that our staff continue to do things remotely, not because it was a COVID issue, but because I wanted people to recognize and understand that even when you're on campus, IT can be invisible and you get the service you want. So I guess back to my CPO, back to my chief psychology officer approach, what we tried to do is try to maintain the expectation that even though things are less severe, we are continuing the model that we continued in COVID. Now, the challenge is coming now when all the students are coming to campus beginning tomorrow, actually, and the faculty are coming tomorrow. We are in IT still we will bring more people on campus, but I'm not insisting that all the team comes. And we will continue to insist on doing things, support remotely, unless it's physically important to do that. So it's just a matter of, the key is, I guess, to keep the momentum going, right? And keep on showing them that, look, nothing has changed. Even though we can do things locally, we can also do it remotely. Let me show you. And just keep it up. And but you have to be flexible, right? Because now there's an expectation of certain things. There's an expectation that I'm on campus, why aren't you? And the answer, I always tell them, well, are you getting the service you need? So let me do it the way I need to be. And by the way, those staff are working longer hours. They're being more efficient by not being here. In terms of the automations and in terms of the new processes, well, since they're automated, they're in the system. To take them out doesn't make sense. And if you want to play, you can say, listen, to take them out is additional resources. Why do you want to do that? And by the way, look, those were working very well. I'm not sure if I answered you, but it's all about setting expectations and then managing them, I guess.
Yeah, you've done a great job in answering me. Let's cross our fingers and hope for the best,
Yeah.
It's going to be really challenging. It's going to be really challenging.
I'll tell you, another one of my things I say, normally, eventually, don't be afraid to say no, because the way I always tell my staff that if you can't do something, then we have to let the client know. And because in the end, we're going to get a slapping. I'd rather get a slapping early on in the process that's small than a bigger slapping at the end because we failed, right? So yeah.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Ahlan.
Thank you. Another question from Aziz. Or Hadi, do you have a question, right?
No, I already combined all the questions live when I asked the first question. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a follow-up of what was being discussed. May I? It's Camille.
Sure.
For everybody and for Yusuf, of course, do you think that from your experience about working remotely, did you notice that the faculty loved it? And can we use this as an opportunity to build on working remotely?
I can give you my opinion. The staff loved it. The faculty are mixed. Most of them prefer to be on campus, actually. And also remember that no electricity and no internet is not helping working remotely. Faculty in general like to come to campus. Staff like to work remotely. The challenge is marrying the two.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
we have a question from Aziz. Aziz, do you mind taking a question?
Yeah, no problem. Hello, everyone. Hi, Yusuf. Thank you really for sharing this nice transformation story of AUB.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is pertaining to throughout your transformation and going through designing your end user support or IT support services for AUB and the various domains or across your organization. Have you ever considered outsourcing the desk services rather than building it? And here I'm linking it to the fact that today, with what we're facing in Lebanon, with most of the developing and top talents leaving the country, finding other opportunities abroad, have you ever considered, or were there players that would be able to help you doing so?
I'll give you the short answer and then I'll explain. Yes and no. Basically, from the beginning, if you notice that we wanted to become service brokers rather than service providers. And what's implied in that is actually what we want to do is go to managed services as much as we can, which is a form of outsourcing, so that we can not to reduce the staff, but rather than to focus our staff from being more technicians and become more analysts and consultants and designers. The ultimate dream would be our staff are basically the bridge between the business units or the academic units and technology. And their job is really to understand the needs, identify the services, and then do the integration. But then all the mundane operational stuff, we want that to be completely outsourced. So that's the yes part. The no part is, to be honest, we've been struggling to find the appropriate partners to make that happen. But whether it's financial or skill set match or talent match, etc., what we're trying to do. This is something we're still looking into. We still like to drive towards, but it has to make both financial sense, but also the point here is not really to replace our staff, but to free up our staff to do the more strategic and more design and more valuable work and outsource everything else.
Thank you, Yusuf.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, and that's why we use such as AI or other tools or robotics or RPAs to really augment the capabilities of the staff, not just go into just remove that routinial that is useless and it doesn't help, but we have to do it. Exactly. If I missed anybody's question, please go ahead and ask live, or if anybody has last question also, so we can conclude our session. I think very exciting sessions. I think everybody is really eager for the knowledge and the experience. And I have a question if nobody has a question. So
I bet you it's a tough one.
No. But I'm really triggered by something in the time of COVID. I'll go ahead and ask it. What was the most challenging part in the beginning on technological perspective, in the first 2-3 weeks after the decision was taken to close everything down? Because that is a chaos by itself.
If I'm trying to think, I'm going to say it wasn't the technology. The hardest part was convincing people in different departments that yes, you can work from home. Yes, you don't need $1 million. And yes, we can support you remotely. That's one part. And the other part, convincing the faculty that yes, you can teach without being in the classroom, and these tools actually work for you.
Yeah, it was more it's always on the human perspective. The hardest part to change. Exactly.
Yeah, because and in fact, we invested, like I said, we were able to go online very quickly, and our biggest effort and biggest resistance was in we call it the onboarding of faculty and the onboarding of staff, basically going them and training them, handling their tickets. So from a pure IT perspective, if you want, our biggest challenge over the past 1 month was the volume of tickets that we needed to deal with.
I guess, Aziz, psychological safety was the main challenge, of course. George, thank you for your comments. Rula, excellent presentation. Thank you, Dr. Asfour. And
thank you.
If you didn't join our WhatsApp group or followed us on YouTube, please do that now. The links are in the chat. And I have one final comment. Great session. Everybody is appreciative. I think from my part and in the name of the participants, we would like to really thank you for this great immersive session, because you tapped on everybody's problem, and everybody is eager to learn from the solutions and from the challenges that you. I think one of the biggest, I'm not gonna university, of course, but biggest enterprise in Lebanon. Also, what you guys has faced. Thank you again, Dr. Asfour. It was a pleasure for us to host you, and we will definitely be talking more. I would like to thank all the participants that stayed till that time, and all of our viewers from outside of Lebanon. Thank you again, and see you in exactly 1 month. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it. Take care.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.